What if Gunslinger Spawn has a tiny baby magic spawn that he has to take care of?
So it'd be Gunslinger Spawn?
Yeah.
Interesting.
This goes out to the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all. What? Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. What? Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast with Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
This is a public podcast. Contest of Challengers is available to anyone who wants to listen. You can easily log on to the internet, go to our website, go to our Libsyn page, subscribe to it on iTunes, and it's there. It's there for people. Right?
That's my understanding, yes.
Yeah. If you're a patron, you get it earlier, and you get it without the edits, but mainly that means you get a lot more pauses, a lot more ums and ahs, and you also get it without any audio drop-ins we might do. And you haven't said anything in months, but you haven't had to do the patrons ever.
That's true.
Because I've done that as a separate file I just plug in.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, the patrons themselves don't get the benefit of that part of the episodes.
That's funny.
But I mean, they know they're patrons. If they want to,
so.
if they want to hear their names, they'll have to listen to the actual episode. You know, the one that has the theme song and the theme song by Adam Warrock, and the introduction by James Van Osdell, and the outro also by James Van Osdell. That is not part of the Patreon one, because the Patreon one is unedited, and those counts as edits.
Okay.
But the moral of this story, it's not a moral at all. The point is, this is a publicly consumed podcast. We're not hiding it. We're not hiding anything on it. If we, for example, say things about Bad Idea that maybe they wouldn't like hearing, we're not hiding from that.
No.
It is available for them to hear, and this is a way for us to discuss it as it pertains to our business.
They're probably going to drop us this shit.
And also, maybe they hear it, maybe they listen, who knows.
Maybe.
I know other publishers, when we talk about Boom Studios, people from Boom Studios will hear it on the podcast.
Sure.
And this is also stuff that, given the chance to talk to them face to face, we would say these things.
Sure. Like,
we are never saying things behind people's backs.
True.
On a public podcast. I'm sorry, I was finishing a thought. I don't know if you had anything. So the point is, this isn't, like, we're not tricking people. We're not like, oh my God, did you hear what that person... Shh. Oh, these aren't rumors. I mean, they may be rumors, but they're not, I mean, we're not hiding anything on this.
Correct.
This is not, we're not embarrassed by anything we say.
No.
And we're certainly not
Probably
trying
should
to...
be.
Yeah, that's true. You especially.
Me especially.
We're certainly not trying to hide anything from the people that we are talking about.
No.
When we do try to hide things, we don't say people's names. It's like that. So, you're not going to embarrass us with things that we have chosen to say and then chosen to keep in to be able to have a complete episode. I edit this. If I don't want something in, I'll take it out. And you know what? I take stuff out. Mainly things I say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
fine.
there's some questionable things I've said. I thought, that is a joke that doesn't land if you're listening to it out of context.
Sure.
So I would go back and take things out rarely. Very, very rarely.
Yeah.
So the point is, if it makes it in the episode, you're not going to embarrass us with it. We're not... I can't think of the phrase. What is the phrase? Like, talk behind someone's back. We're not shit-talking anybody. I mean, we may be, but we're not doing it like...
We're not gossiping about people.
Yeah. So there will be things in this episode that I will tell you that I will not attribute to a specific person. For because I don't want that out for their benefit. We know how to not say things. Mm-hmm. So I just thought that would be a nice little reminder for people who listen to this podcast.
Uh-huh.
And this is a busy week in Challenger's life. A lot is going on, and not only does the whiteboard have a bunch of stuff on it,
It does.
I have extra on sheets of paper.
Goodness gracious.
And I don't even know where to start. I'm going to start with something that's not even on the board.
Okay.
Today was the release of the next wave of Pokemon stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Shining Fates.
Shining Fates, and specifically, Dal, what?
ETBs, Patrick.
Shining Fate ETBs.
Only thing that matters in the world, Pokemon ETBs. Elite Trainer boxes, for those who are lucky enough to not run a store that sells Pokemon cards.
I think that it may come, not immediately, but maybe later this year, that we just quit selling Pokemon cards.
Definitely feels like something that we would be doing for the benefit of our mental health.
Yeah, definitely for us.
Yeah.
So, with the wave of Shining Fates things from Pokemon, we were told to expect allocations, as were everybody, because there was so much interest now, mainly because of the pandemic.
Sure.
That it was unexpected that... who makes these? Bandai?
No, the Pokemon Company.
The Pokemon Company... Oh, Bandai is Yu-Gi-Oh! The Pokemon Company wouldn't be able to fill all the orders. So we were expecting large allocations. Good news, we'll be able to get everything we ordered, but in waves.
Yeah, that's
not
how they're
all at
allocating
once.
things. Instead of saying, we've printed X amount, so you're getting half of whatever you ordered, like another company might. What they're saying is, you're getting half now, and then you'll be getting additional percentages until you get 100%, but they'll be coming on a staggered release schedule.
Yeah, and we don't know when that's going to be.
Right.
But
It's literally when they have enough to ship out another percentage.
sure, and honestly, that's great. That's fine.
Sure.
We had so many phone calls today. You can imagine.
I can imagine.
And so many people come in,
Uh-huh.
but it still took us to the end of the day to sell out of the ETBs. The weirdest thing was this one guy called multiple times to make sure we still had it. Because look, we're a comic book store, all right? We allocate very little space to Pokemon cards.
True.
And we don't prioritize it.
No.
But also, it is such an aggravation that when people call for it and they're like, do you have it? Yes. Can I put it on hold? No. It's first come, first serve.
Yeah.
So then they keep calling, do you still have it? Do you still have it? That kind of thing.
Oh, my God.
Then when this one guy came, and we're limiting to one per person because we have so few.
Right, because otherwise, literally the first person in would just buy all of them.
The first person in did try to buy all of them.
Right, because we're selling them. What are they? $70, $75?
We're selling them for $75.
These things are going for anywhere between like $100 and $200 online. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So the people who are trying to buy all of them, it's not like, oh, I want to play Pokemon cards. It's that someone's looking at the ability to buy $200 for $75, which is a sweet deal. So I would buy $200 for $75 if someone gave me the option.
So what I started doing to people was ask them to open them right there.
Just to see what would happen.
One guy I'm like, hey, really looking forward to cracking into all this because he bought one of everything that came out.
Sure.
Looking forward to cracking into everything. Oh yeah, I can't wait. I've been collecting these cards like my whole life. I still have my binders from when I was a kid. Yeah, I can't wait to see what I get. Oh man, that's so great. That's so great to hear. He's like, I'm not a speculator. I'm not going to flip these. Like, I didn't say you were.
But you assumed you
I
was.
definitely assumed. I was totally hinting at that.
I mean, frankly, you're playing the odds.
Yeah.
Like, all of this demand is not... And this is something you and I talked about earlier in the week. This demand for Pokemon cards is not just people who are like, oh, I suddenly started playing Pokemon cards. Because I'm sure some people did because of the pandemic. They, discovered the love of something that they could do in their own home with a family member or a friend or a partner. But at the same time, a lot of this is being driven by people flipping original boxes of Pokemon cards for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And some of the cards within them for thousands and tens of thousands of dollars. So it's ridiculous. So like that has had a trickle-down effect of so many people who are familiar with Pokemon cards doing the thing of like, someone finds out Action Comics #1 sells for $1 million, so suddenly people are just buying a bunch of Superman comics because one sold for $1 million.
Right.
You don't deal with that as much anymore, but there is still like when certain comics get collectible, it makes more comics collectible.
Here's a quick side story. It's not my story. It did not happen in our store.
Okay.
It is someone that we interact with on the internet. Someone called, and this guy has a store dog, and he was about to take the dog out for a walk.
Okay.
Like the dog had to just run outside and pee.
Sure.
And he gets a phone call. The guy is on the phone for 7 minutes, giving him his life story about all the books he used to have, and if he still had his old collection, they wouldn't be worth $1 million. They'd be worth tens of millions.
Wow.
That's how great this collection was.
That sounds like a pretty great collection.
He recently had like a fire and a whole bunch of stuff got to get packed up. So while he was unpacking his things after it was all taken care of, he came across, get this,
Are you sitting down?
Infinity War issues 1 through 4.
Oof.
Those came out in the 90s.
Four of the 6 issue
That
series?
is over.
Man.
That is over 30 years old.
Wow.
Now, he's calling to see what they're worth,
Uh-huh.
but he's going to be asking $4,000.
Amazing.
So the store that he called,
Counter offer, $1 billion.
the store that he called, the retailer he got, had those books on hand.
Sure.
And he's like, yeah, I just want you to know that these books are not worth anywhere what you think they're worth. He's like, well, I mean, you sell comics, right?
They made an Infinity War movie, okay?
Yeah.
A movie called Infinity War that made $1 billion.
He's like, well, I'm going to ask for $4,000. And the retailer goes, I want you to know I have these books in the store right now. All totaled, I'm asking $18 for them. Person on the phone very calmly said, I don't think you know what you're talking about, and hangs up.
Fair point.
Right.
Fair point. I think time will bear out the guy on the phone as being the correct one. Those books are definitely going to be worth $4,000 any minute now.
$4,000. What? And this is someone who doesn't post all that often. He's like, I just had to share this story.
I mean, you've got to
God,
understand
I
that
love it.
Infinity War has not just Spider-Man, but an evil Spider-Man. And not just Wolverine, but an evil Wolverine.
Right.
And so on and so forth. And certainly, the first appearance of Wolverine is, thousands of dollars. And the first appearance of Spider-Man is thousands of dollars. So the first appearance of an evil Spider-Man and an evil Wolverine and an evil Captain America, I mean, $4,000 is a bargain. Any way you slice it.
Can I just say that I love that the new X-Men book coming out, Children of the Atom, that has all new characters in it that have all already appeared elsewhere.
Yes.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So all the people that are like, I'll get this because it's all new
the
characters.
Strange Academy speculators.
Yeah. Nope. Sorry. Those they all appeared. They appeared a year ago. Sorry.
It's crazy to me, and this is just one of the quirks of a collectibles-driven market like we have now, that Strange Academy just released their first collection. They did it in the graphic novel format because it's for
Younger
readers, and yet all of the heat on that book is from people who are speculating on the first appearances of all these kids.
Yep.
Like, it's like the Pokemon cards selling out at McDonald's because adults can't stop buying all of them and flipping them online, or opening them on YouTube. Anyway, going back to Pokemon cards, you like how I brought that all the way around?
Yeah, that's really good. I was going to do that.
Yeah, the Pokemon card thing.
Legitimately, we have people
It's
who
a
are
giant
excited
hassle.
to buy them,
It's a giant hassle.
who open them with their kids, things like that, and that's great.
But this is like Pokemon cards a year ago. We were selling maybe a box, maybe 2 boxes at best.
Yeah.
In like the summertime of a new Pokemon card set. We weren't even carrying stuff like ETBs because literally no one was asking for them. I don't even know if they existed. I assume they did.
Don't you
probably.
feel dirty just saying ETB?
I do. I feel so bad about it. My syllables are at a premium. But all of like the various like Pokemon card stuff, the boxes and the trainer sets and all that other stuff,
The pin sets and the tins.
we didn't carry any of those because there was zero demand for them. And occasionally when we get something in, it would take like 3 months to sell like one oversized $50 thing. And it's like, who cares? It's taking up too much space. We'll stock the booster packs. It's blown up because it's all these people flipping it. Like it cannot be just organic demand because it doesn't match any sort of organic demand curve. More kids are playing it. We'd probably be going to 2 and 3 booster boxes rather than 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the rest of the stuff, it's ridiculous. And
Not 10.
And it's all, like, weird speculator-driven stuff. Because even some of the stuff we've gotten in, it's like, we get a few, like, trainer decks or something. Oh, you don't have ETBs? No, we don't have ETBs. Like, these are still Pokemon cards. It is still the Pokemon
Not
cards.
the right ones.
But apparently not the right ones.
It goes back to the wrong Coverdale.
Yeah, and so...
David Coverdale, from Whitesnake.
Oh, okay. Between like the kind of weird insistence of the kind of Pokemon speculators that are hounding us, and apparently tracking the people who restock stuff at Target, because that's how insane this world has gotten.
Yep. Putting electronic tracking devices on vans.
Yeah, on restock vans, so that people can track exactly when the restock van gets to Target, so they can then swoop down on Target and buy all this stuff to flip it online. True story, this is a real thing that happened. Between that sort of mentality, which is incredibly frustrating to deal with, especially when you can't get the stuff to sell people. It's one thing if people are like, calling for a book, and it's like, I got it. Like, you know, taking phone calls for Last Ronin #2 isn't as frustrating, because it's like, I have a $9 book I can sell someone. This is paying off for me.
Yeah, and it wasn't short printed,
Right.
and we got what we ordered.
Right.
So when people call today, do you have it? Yeah, we sure do. Oh my God, can you hold it? We don't need to, but yes, I will hold it for you.
Yeah.
And they're excited to come in to get their comic, to buy and read their comic.
Right.
You know how many of the people who bought Pokemon stuff today also bought Pokemon graphic novels?
0. Big old goose
I
egg.
made sure to mention that we had them, though.
They don't care.
They do not care.
The other problem that I've experienced personally with the Pokemon cards is because they are valuable and going for something online, even the ones that we do have tend to get stolen.
Of course, because that's why the world works.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we stopped carrying Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards a few years back, was because, frankly, they were getting stolen more than they were getting bought. They definitely appealed to a kind of person who is more than fine stealing stuff to get what they want. I don't know that that's going to be why we stop carrying Pokemon cards later this year. If we do.
No, it'll be because
factor in.
of just the aggravation of today, where it's all these phone calls.
I'm sure.
This, excuse me. This guy that had called multiple times finally comes in with a second person. I'm like, great, because they already knew it was one per person. So we have 2 ETBs left. They pick them both up, carry them around the store for a solid 10, 15 minutes, come back up, put one back, walk around with the other one, come back up, put that one back, and leave.
So weird.
Right? Constantly on their phone, though.
Yeah, incredibly strange.
Then we had somebody
Super
say,
suspicious and weird.
oh my God, I'm so glad you're buying, that you have this. I saw fill in the blank space online was selling it for $150.
Yep.
And I told Dow, I'm like, we could bump it up to $100. He's like, no, we're not doing that.
I don't want to be greedy.
I'm like, well,
we could, but we've talked about this before. I want to kind of measure how much of that, I don't know, the
spite.
Just the
It's
inflated price structure. I don't.
We're not marking it up to make money. We're marking it up as a aggravation fee.
Sure, and our calculus for this stuff is not just what we can get for it. Like, I don't ever want to do that. I want it to feel like this is a fair price, and we have percentages that we work off of, you know, based on what we pay for something and all the other costs that go along with carrying it, and then figuring out, like, what is the amount of money that we can make selling this that makes it reasonable for us to keep doing it. And there's, you know, it's a range of percentages, and we apply that to the Pokemon cards the same as we would a Marvel comic or a Marvel Legends figure or a pack of boards or whatever. Like, so I always want to keep that formula kind of in mind for even the stuff that's like, but we could be selling this for so much more. Yeah, but I don't want to gouge. I don't want to be that guy.
With that stuff, normally, that formula doesn't work because then it comes out too much. What I'm saying is the markup on Magic cards, Pokemon cards, D&D books
well, like
is worse than it is on single-issue comics.
Sure.
And it's not great on single-issue comics.
Well, like I said, it's a range. Like, there's a formula, and we have a range of kind of what we're looking to get percentage-wise, and it's a window. And we measure that against kind of what the market is saying. We should be selling things like Marvel Legends for more money than we are. But even what we're selling is more than you would pay if you were getting them on Big Bad Toy Store or at Target. So we have to kind of think, okay, well, we're not making as much on these as we would like, but we can't price them so high that they're out of range of everything else or they'll never sell.
One of the things that worked in our favor is when we switched our distribution for the Marvel Legends and we're getting them at a slightly better price, it was offset by shipping.
Right.
And now that we have to pay a lot more for shipping, it's like, oh man, I don't want to have to raise these prices just because of shipping, but that's how it is with everything nowadays.
Yeah.
So Pokemon cards are... the reason I can be so callous about them and use like the markup that we're using to get to the $75 for the boxes now is just the normal end of what we want to do normally.
Right.
Like if we were doing the traditional Pokemon markup, it'd be less, and it would be infuriating to me.
Yeah, for all we have to deal with. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, I don't want to be a jerk about it, but there kind of is an aggravation penalty that we're charging. Again, like, part of the formula is what makes it worthwhile to carry this. And that includes a lot of things like who do we have to order from, and how long does it take to get in, and how does it get shipped to us, and how do we have to deal with receiving it, and what all those little things that we have to do we're basically including that in, like, well, this makes it reasonable to sell it then if we're making this much money to do those things. And Pokemon cards unfortunately get added into that. Incredibly frustrating phone calls and people stealing them and people trying to steal them that you have to monitor like a hawk. Like, all of that stuff is, unfortunately, it's built into the price for Pokemon cards now.
When somebody calls and says, hey, do you have heavy number 2? Like, no, I'm sorry, we don't, but we can get it for you. You know, I can take your name and number. It would be in, depending on weather, blah, blah, blah. That's what you get. That's the, if we don't have a book, we feel bad, we want to try to get it for you.
Sure.
When we don't have Pokemon stuff, I don't care.
No.
I don't even want the conversation. And honestly, nobody just calls and says, do you have Shining Fates Elite Trainer boxes?
No, they always want to know everything you've got.
Yeah, and it's a build-up, and it's... Man, we had two separate phone calls for Spider-Man stickers today, and one of them took so long, I'm like, it's a $4 sticker. It's not worth me on the phone for this long.
No. The worst Pokemon phone calls are the ones where they don't know exactly what they want. They want to know everything you've got. And when you name everything you've got, then they start asking, oh, you don't have this? You don't have this? You don't have this?
Yeah. You know how
Where
many
were
times,
those questions before I read everything off?
You know how many times today I said, everything we have is right there. Right. There was an email today you may have seen. Do you still have this particular manga book?
Yes.
I was looking on your website to see if you could ship to the UK, but I couldn't see that. And my first thought was, well, you were on the website. You could have looked to see if we have that book. Yes, we have it. No, we're not shipping to the UK.
No.
You specifically said, the website says you only ship to the United States. Can you ship it to the United Kingdom? No.
Yeah.
That's why it doesn't say you could ship to the United Kingdom.
That's usually how we indicate that we can do something, is we say we can do something. When we say we can't do something, it usually means we can't do something.
Hi, I know you don't have this, but do you have this? No, we don't. While I'm doing customer stories, I'm going to give one quick phone call from the sale, the last day of the sale, last Saturday. You've already heard the story, Dal, but this listener has not.
I'll check out then.
You can be excited for it
I'm
again.
just kidding.
The last day of the sale, since it was a Saturday, it was very busy. It was a very busy day. A lot of people, a lot of web orders, things like that. Somebody calls and starts with, I already bought a bunch of stuff at the sale during the week. I'm like, great, thanks. Yeah, but I wanted to get some more stuff. Can I put it aside and get it tomorrow? You can put it aside, but it wouldn't be on sale anymore. Well, I was going to send my girlfriend in for it. Okay, but it still wouldn't be on sale unless you buy it today. Well, I want to know if you had a couple of books. I'm like, you know what? Everything that's available on the sale is on the website. You can look there. Well, I mean, I was going to pay for it over the phone. Like, it's so much easier. Like, you can pay for it all on the website, and it's on sale. The website, is part of the sale. You can do it that way, and we don't have to waste anyone's time. It's all great. Well, can I just tell you over the phone? No! That's excuse me. That's why we have the website.
Pretty much.
Go to that. I have to help all these people who are in the store. That's what I would like to do. I shortcut that story because I already told it to you before. And,
it's true.
There was somebody.
But yeah, I mean, it's
a couple of times. Like, somebody called, said, "Hey, I'm looking for last order number 2 on your website. I can't find it." I'm like, "Well, it's new for the week, and as a rule, we don't put new books on the website for a full week. We are prioritizing the in-store experience, and we really want people to come in. Yep. If you can't come in, it'll be available next week. Don't worry, we still have a bunch." "Oh, no, I can come in." "Okay, great, come in."
Yeah.
But I mean, I want to make a point of saying, like, hey, it will be there, but we're not just web
Saturday
sales.
night.
We don't want to, we want the people that come in Wednesday through, what do you say, Saturday night?
Yeah, they usually go up around
Wednesday through Saturday to
5 and
have
7 on
first
Saturday
chance,
night.
because we are first and foremost an in-store store.
Usually work on it around dinner time on Saturday.
Oh, well then. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And like that wasn't a bad customer interaction.
No.
That was just somebody who they're like, oh no, I get it. But the person with the Spider-Man, like, how big is the sticker? It's 3 inches diameter. How big is that? It's a 3-inch circle. Mm-hmm. Like, is it as big as your palm? As what? As my palm? I mean, I guess.
You don't know how big my palm
No,
is,
your
though.
phone. My phone is not a circle.
And you don't know how big my phone is.
Well, can you describe it? It is Spider-Man's chest emblem. I don't know what that looks like. It's a spider on webs. Do you have anything where they just have Spider-Man? Yeah, we have one of those as well. How big is it? They're all the same size. They're all the same price.
Uh-huh.
I don't...
It's a $4 sticker.
It's a $4 sticker.
$4 sticker.
My...
It's like calling the grocery store and saying, okay, but what is the best bag of beets that you've got? How
can
heavy
you
is
describe
it?
what the beets are?
How many are in each bag? Like, not just the bag that you're holding, but how many are in each bag? Okay, it weighs how much? Okay, but what is that? I mean, how many phones is that weigh?
All right, Dal. You have your choice of anything up off of the board, except for the first one, because we talked about it. We may skip the second one, because it's boring and old.
Okay.
Or this paper.
Oh, let's do the third thing. Patrick, you want to talk about a rumor you've been hearing about?
Sure. This is a rumor.
A rumor.
This is a rumor, but it has been a rumor that has been heard by, I was going to say prominent figures in the industry,
It's
but
going around the industry at different levels.
That there is a group of millionaire comic book fans who are looking to buy DC Comics publishing from Time Warner.
Which, I mean...
From AT&T.
Like, I haven't heard this rumor, but it sounds like to me someone who'd basically be forming a new publishing company and then licensing the DC characters exclusively for comics.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. You can't, like, you literally couldn't buy DC because doing that would mean owning Batman and Superman and, like, Warner Media, I cannot imagine would have any interest in selling the rights to Wonder Woman and Batman and Superman and the Justice League.
This would just be for comics publishing.
Right, so that's the thing. So
no other media.
Yeah, so you're just licensing the rights then.
And with a caveat that any stories they tell, Warner Brothers can use for their other media.
And that's honestly pretty standard. Like, when IDW is doing the Transformers comics, and they're licensing the Transformers characters and universe from Hasbro, if they create a new Transformer, Hasbro can make a toy of that, can make a movie of that, can make a poster of it, can make a video game of it, can do anything they want with it. They're adding that. Basically, anything that gets created by IDW becomes added to Hasbro's, IP vault for Transformers. And it would be the same way with DC stuff. If this investor group got the rights to do DC publishing and they created, a new Batman sidekick, that Batman sidekick would be owned by Warner Media, and they could make TV shows and movies and all the other stuff with it.
I just literally created a new Transformer right now. His name is Deceptutron.
Okay.
He's an Autobot.
Okay.
And he turns into a 1940s private investigator.
Okay. Like Nightbeat. Good.
Like what?
Nightbeat is a robot who's basically a private investigator, and he kind of has private investigator tropes.
Of course, there's fucking one of those.
There was one, I think one of the UK stories.
Of course, my stupid joke of an idea
where he had him in
already exists.
They had him in a trench coat, like a hat, just as like on like a noir planet or whatever.
Man.
Yeah.
Also, Nightbeat, pretty good name.
Yeah, in 37 years of Transformers, there's almost no joke you can make that someone has not created. It's virtually impossible. It's like coming up with, like, the dumbest Marvel character. I guarantee you there's a dumber one.
No, they're already giving Reptile a new miniseries.
It's true. 4 issues. It's super random.
So
I wonder how that character bubbled up on the list.
Right?
I mean, sometimes you see stuff like that and it's like, all right, what movie, TV show, video game is that character going to show up in? Like, do you remember when there was all of a sudden out of nowhere, like, Tombstone collections?
Yeah.
Well, Tombstone was in the Spider-Man video game. And someone probably said, hey, this is the roster of characters we're doing. And someone at Marvel went, well, we don't have a Tombstone collection because literally no one cares about Tombstone. But someone might play this video game and be like, I want to know more about Tombstone. So here's a collection. The joke of that
Yet
is
people want more Scorpion stuff, and they never have that.
the joke of it is that the stuff that would be the most valuable to us as a story is if Marvel Studios ever told Marvel Publishing, here are the characters we're doing stuff with, so they didn't just make vague collections and then find out, oh no, the story that people are most interested in is House of M, and you're completely sold out of it.
Yep.
Until 2 months after
Until
the end
April,
of WandaVision.
Yeah.
Unhelpful.
Dal, I'm in a little bit of a bind here.
Mm-hmm.
I believe WandaVision ends on March 5th.
So I think tonight is episode 7.
Right.
And of 9.
Right.
So there's 2 more weeks after
And 8 and 9 are 2 hours each, or an hour each.
Oh, that makes sense.
My point is there's an Anne Boleyn live stream that night.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, you can always wait. The week after, so I think it ends, and then they're doing a 1 week, what's now called Marvel Studios Assembled, where it's going to be like the making of doc they do after every one of their series now, in the same way that they did like a 6-part series for Mandalorian, and then for season 2 for Mandalorian they just did a 1-episode thing.
I don't know what that is.
And then that'll slot in between the end of WandaVision and the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So there will be a Marvel Studios thing basically every Friday.
Forever.
For a while.
Fridays are busy days for me.
Sorry.
Can't imagine having to do all this stuff if we stayed open till 7. So the DC buyout, it's been other people, like creators and journalists, there was quotes around that word, journalists, have been talking to people. They all know names involved. No one's saying which names are involved.
Sure.
But this is like been, I guess, it's not. We're just hearing about it now, but it's been a thing for a little while.
Yeah, if you were a group of
months.
investors who was trying to take over DC Publishing,
The last thing you do is make it public.
right? But other than that, you also would want to start talking to people within the community to find out anything you don't already know, get their read on the situation. You know, you want to get things from other people, and then on top of that, you want to start talking to creators to be like, hey, if we had DC characters, what would you want to work on? What would you have ideas for? You want to make sure that, one, you have stuff in the pipeline so that if you need to move on this, it's not like I have to go hire a ton of people.
Right.
But also, in theory, you want to go to DC and say, hey, this is... You go to Warner Media and you say, this is the stuff we're offering. Like, these are the people who we have who would want to work on these things. Like, there's the old story about...
The Bible.
Well, when Jim Shooter was going to get, theoretically, DC stuff.
Yeah.
Like, he was already talking to people who were working for Marvel at the time of, like, what characters would you want to work on? Who would you want to tell stories with? So, like, that's pretty typical. Like, and it's all people who can keep their mouths shut. Like, the people you talk to are not just, like, it's not open call stuff. It's like, hey, I've known you for a while, or hey, you understand how big a deal this is. This is something that we can offer to you if you can keep your mouth shut and we make this deal.
Yeah. Jimmy Palmiotti had said that, and I don't know if this is a joke or not, that if that happens, he and Amanda Conner will do a Kickstarter to be able to, like, sub-license Power Girl.
Okay.
To keep working on Power Girl stuff.
Sure.
I wonder if these people would even do that, if that's a thing.
I don't think they would. I don't think they could.
I don't think they'd be allowed to.
No.
I don't think they'd be allowed to.
No.
So, I mean, it's very interesting. I would be curious to see how it's going, although DC seems to be doing much better as far as in the fans' minds and the people working there.
Because they don't have to stock their books.
By the way, today was the last day for Adam and Stewart.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Did you see Vince Lothario landed someplace today?
No, where was that?
Take a wild guess.
Bad idea.
Nope. Where else is suddenly picking up a bunch of old DC staffers?
Also Dynamite?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't think Dynamite had the ability. Like, I was trying to go with...
Apparently they do.
I was going to go with Boundless and Zetascope off of your guesses yesterday when I was talking about Ski.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
Yeah.
Did you see that Dynamite also donated $10,000 to Bink?
No, that's great. So speaking of the DC stuff, they were, according to The Beat, they were presenting at Comics Pro. I don't know if it was today or yesterday.
By the way, it is Comics Pro weekend right now. Mm-hmm. Like 4 years ago, we were in Memphis doing this stuff. It is going on right now, and we don't have any insider information because while the meeting is still happening, not in person, it's all virtual. Mm-hmm. And while I did sign up for it, I barely did anything with it this weekend because it's a busy week here in Chicago, what with lots of snow and lots of issues to deal with and, new Pokemon and things. So I gave Dal all my login credentials, and he did nothing.
I did nothing with it. At their presentation, they did mention that they are committed to the periodical market, and I thought that was really funny that they had to stress that again in a way that no other publisher needs to. And I thought, boy, for a company that went to such lengths to unify communications across all channels, if you have to consistently tell one of your major business partners that you are not abandoning their market, you need to work on your communications a little better.
On any
Channels
channel.
aren't the problem.
Yeah.
Communications are the problem.
Last week we
that out.
talked about some of the new digital first initiatives they're doing. This week it's now Batman 89 and
Superman 78.
Superman 78. Yeah.
Which both look great, but
Yeah.
it's still a thing of like, oh, cool. So there's going to be a digital lead time of months before you start publishing these in print. Okay, great, thanks. And that's just the standard now. I'm more surprised when DC has a publishing announcement that does not include a digital first component. Like, that's
Sure.
where it's like, what? Why? What changed? Yeah, the DC buyout thing, a couple years ago, it would have been like, that's ludicrous and also could massively destabilize the industry. But now I'm like, great, I hope someone does it. Like, most of the people that I cared about who worked at that company are gone. So many of the decisions they're making are for the incredibly short-sighted Warner Media philosophy. I'd love it if literally anybody bought them and said, we're just making comic books and that's our only goal. And yes, we're going to release through Diamond because we don't need a completely separate distribution scheme because it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I would welcome any new ownership for DC Comics at this point. I'd even be fine with them keeping a lot of the editorial staff. I don't have any real problem with, well, maybe not generally. I don't have any problem with a lot of the people who run that company because I know that they're probably having a lot of restrictions put on them by people much higher than the people who publish the comic books.
Yep.
So yeah, I'd love to see what like a Marie Javins or somebody like that does when they're just making comic books.
Speaking of unifying communication via all channels, one of the changes that DC made when they switched over to Lunar was the final order cutoff deadline shortened by a day. Mm-hmm. Those are due on Sundays.
Yep, except for
when there's a holiday, like this week was President's Day, so last weekend it was due Thursday.
Yeah.
Fine. So I don't wait and do it at the last minute. I do it when I have the opportunity.
Sure.
So today, I went through and did the DC FOCs, and I turned it in at 4 p.m. 4 p.m. on Friday.
Yep.
At 4:18 p.m. on Friday, we get notification, oh, there's a whole bunch of new variant covers for Justice League and new incentive covers for the book I just FOC'd.
Yep.
And all I thought was, seriously, fuck you guys.
Yeah, and they can only do that because they own basically the distribution scheme. So
Literally,
Diamond would be like, absolutely not, this is going on next week's FOC, but Lunar's like, I guess we push this out, and I guess we cross our fingers that people have time over the next couple days to redo this.
literally 2 weeks ago, somebody asked in the DC forum, hey, because of President's Day, we got to get things done early. The FOC list you have for that week, is there anything else that's going to be added? And they came back right away with, no, in fact, 2 of the books are going to be removed. Great. So I could do them early and not have to worry about it.
Right.
This time, I didn't even do it early. I did it on time.
Yeah.
And they're still, like, I'm not ordering those books. I wasn't going to order them anyway.
No.
But seriously, fuck you guys.
Yeah. Gigantic pain in the ass.
4:18 p.m. on a Friday. Like, I'm supposed to just do, like, it's...
Yeah. The problem with DC essentially having exclusive distribution and having a distributor whose client is solely DC Comics is that there's no mechanism to keep DC from doing short-sighted, detrimental, and selfish things. Like, there's no one to get in the middle of that and go, okay, no, that's unfair to all of the retailers. It can wait a week. Maybe you reschedule the books. Like, maybe you should have told everyone ahead of time. Like, that happens to publishers all the time where it's like, oh, this came in too late. Okay, well, it's going to ship late now.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how it happens.
That's how it happens.
The rules don't get to change just because you thought of it at the last minute. Like, no, it is unfair to ask everybody to bend to your whim. And that's what DC does with Lunar now, is like, whatever DC comes up with. Oh, there's stuff in DC Connect. Yeah, we added a bunch more covers. Oh, we're just going to tell you those at the last minute. We're going to tell you those 2 days before the orders close. I don't know. Figure it out. Great, thanks. Or note, we just don't order them. Like, that's cool. I'll just do that.
We had 2 club members today mention that they haven't got any DC books the last couple weeks.
So weird. Where's the new issue of Justice League?
And it was one club member who only gets DC books and was buying Future State White Nightwing #2 off the rack.
Okay.
Well, that's not going to help you. You never bought #1. Mm-hmm. And I had to say, yeah, they for January and February, their entire initiative was Future State. You would have gotten the thing in your pull box that is a catalog all about them. You, especially as you get just DC books, how can you not know about this? And then say, because he literally had nothing in his box.
Right.
Who then this is somebody who only comes in every couple of months.
Sure.
And then someone else is like, yeah, it's been real light on DC stuff. Yeah, it's been Future State.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get any of those. Well, that's why.
Yeah.
But here is a topic that came up online that I thought was, very interesting.
Okay.
A retailer had the idea that since the Future State return window opens next week, to go through their subscriber boxes, and anyone that hasn't picked up their Future State books, return them.
Wow.
What do you think of that?
I don't think I want to do that.
Oh, I didn't think you'd want to do it, but
okay.
I completely understand doing it.
Sure.
Because
we're going to get burned on some of this.
We're going to get burned on some of that stuff.
So, here's the thing. I don't think it's as likely with Future State because, frankly, Future State was an opt-in thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like we went, okay, well, the people who got Superman are all automatically going to get Future State Superman Worlds at War or Future State Superman of Metropolis. We told people, like, look, you're not going to get anything unless you order this Future State stuff. So they had to tell us, I want this. Those people are the ones who generally don't leave us hanging on stuff. So, and on top of that, we did not have a lot of subscribers for the Future State stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, the unpicked up stuff, I mean, it's probably, like, under a dozen books, probably, that have not been picked up for Future State. So it's not really worth, like, burning 3 people or whatever.
But it's literally a thing I never thought of.
No, I get it, though.
I'm like, yeah, there's a way to actually get money back for those.
Yeah.
This is a little bit off topic, but there was a club member who got the weekly email of what's coming out next week and just sends, probably on their phone,
Sure.
very brief...
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
You're already
like 10,
smiling.
It's like 10 words. Yeah.
Very brief, and not like of things they want from this week, but none of it's like, hey, this is Patrick Brower. Can you please add these for next week or put these on my list or whatever? Yeah. It's just a list.
Yeah, it's just 4 titles.
Yeah, and there's always something that's too ambiguous. Mm-hmm. So one of them was Future Superman. I had to email them and say, there are 3 separate Future State Superman books coming out next week. Can you be more specific? And then they just cut and paste from the email.
Sure.
Like, it's just always so blunt. Mm-hmm. Am I wrong to want a little bit of please and thank you involved? To be fair, they did put a TY in lowercase in the first one.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't affect me that much. I don't feel as put out by it. But I understand why you would be.
But, I mean, aren't you put out by that same person constantly being too ambiguous to where you're like, I don't know what you want?
Yeah, I mean, that's frustrating for sure.
Yeah, you're wasting my time. Mm. The information, we give you this massive list of information. Just tell us what you want.
Yeah.
When you're at a restaurant, you're like, you look at a menu, you just go, oh, steak.
I'll have the chicken. The what now?
What kind?
How would you like it prepared? What sides, etc.?
So annoying. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Now, here's a question from your good friend, Lord Retail, Jermaine Exum.
Mm-hmm.
This is in response to people that may only be buying books either from like a buying club online or off of eBay that or don't have options.
I don't understand.
I think there exists a customer base that only knows how to interact with comics in that way or by paying eBay prices. They literally don't know what cover price is or how to get comics another way. When they hear, oh, let's take, I don't know, randomly I'm going to pick a book off the top of my head, Radiant Black.
Okay.
Let's say they're like, oh, I want Radiant Black. So they go to their store, and their store is selling Radiant Black for like $8 now. And so they buy it because that's all they know.
Sure.
My point was that there are too many stores that immediately raise prices.
Yeah. That's true.
And Jermaine thinks that, but don't you think people don't know there's other options? I mean, I'll read it again.
No, I get it.
Okay.
I don't understand where the question is. Like,
well, it's not a question. I mean, it's a topic.
Yes, there are people who shop places that don't know they could comparison shop.
How could you not combat that, but how can you...
You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens all over the world. Like, there's people who just, like, who will go to one grocery store, and that's the grocery store they go to, and coffee, a bag of coffee from their brand costs whatever that store charges. And they don't know that another grocery store might charge less. And even if they do, they're not going to go to a different grocery store just to pay a little less. They're at a place. That's the place they go to. This is how much that place is charging. Do they want to pay that or not? And if they do, they buy it. If they don't, they don't. So, yeah, I mean, yes.
Or you call around to see who has ETVs, and you buy them everywhere.
But again, that's the other end of the spectrum, where you've got people who are always hunting for the best price and will, hit 7 or 8 different websites when something comes out to find out who has it for even $1 lower, and that's where they buy it from. And even if that means they've pre-ordered it somewhere else, they'll cancel that pre-order and then get it from whoever has it faster, whoever has cheaper shipping, or whoever's charging a little bit less, or whatever. Versus, again, people who will just like, I get all my books from Midtown. Midtown's charging this much. Midtown has it in stock. I'm going to buy it. So, yeah, I mean, yes.
I feel like it's not a thing that we know how to work with, because we don't ever really raise prices, and we do give people the options. Like, there's so many stores that I look at their selection of, say, graphic novels compared to ours, and I would think, well, why wouldn't you just shop with us? Mm-hmm. But I mean, there's a billion reasons that people have whatever.
And they just don't. Like, that's
also maybe because these guys have a jerk podcast where they're mean to everybody.
Sure. Yeah, constantly calling out customers. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, anytime someone comes in and they say they like the store and they'd love to shop with us more regularly, but they've got this other store, and they kind of do this like song and dance about like, please don't be mad at me. And it's like, I'm never going to be mad at you. You don't have to explain to me why you shop at another store.
I will feel sorry for you.
It's none of my business.
I won't be mad at you. I'll just not understand why you don't want better things in life. But I'm not going to be mad at you for it.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
Yeah. That's fine. That's fine. Do you want to say how you're not mad at Bad Idea this week? Well, you are, but for a brief shining moment, you were excited about Diamond?
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, this isn't I don't know who's responsible for this. One of the things that Patrick and I have talked about is how we're going to be dealing with the subscription service when it comes to books like Bad Idea. All of the Bad Idea books are being ordered separately from our normal order routine. We order all of our major books through Diamond, and we do all of our DC stuff through Lunar. And that's all on the system, so we can pull it for people for their subscriptions, and we can do all that sort of stuff. Anything we get from outside vendors really doesn't work with Comic Suite, our subscription management system. So we didn't really know how we'd be able to do stuff like when ENIAC comes out. How do we make sure the right people get those comics, and how do they get added to their accounts, and how do we make sure they come up when we pull their subscriptions into the register, and how do we notify them that those books have arrived, and all the other stuff that we can do for things from Diamond and things from Lunar. Well, this past week, all of a sudden, found in our system, downloaded from Diamond, a title for ENIAC. So ENIAC can be added to people's subscription lists. We'd made one up before, but that was just a Band-Aid. That wasn't really a solution.
This is placeholder.
And then we noticed the ENIAC number 1 and ENIAC number 1 not first print edition were both items that were in Diamond's database, which means they could be added to people's subscriptions when they come in. And even weirder, both those books had our order quantities from Bad Idea on them. We submitted those to Bad Idea a few weeks ago. And in our Diamond database, there is the exact quantities for each of those editions. So that's a cool thing, and I was very happy to see that. It definitely makes receiving those books and giving them to the right subscribers and notifying the subscribers that they've arrived substantially easier, way more reliable. And hopefully that'll continue for all the other Bad Idea books. Not 100% sure how that happened. Unclear if that means that Bad Idea books are going to be distributed by Diamond, even though all the orders are being placed outside of Diamond's ordering, or if it just means that Bad Idea passed along their data to Diamond for Diamond accounts so that they could be reflected in things like Comic Suite and RMH.
You mean the opposite of DC?
Yeah, basically, which I love. I mean, that was always the hope way back when there was Lunar and UCS, was that, just give them time and then they can all coordinate. And then it was like, no, DC hates that. So, like, the coordination was the only thing that worked out in our favor as a Comic Suite user is that Diamond UK is still distributing DC product because of things like Brexit and shipping costs. And that means that Diamond as a company still has access to DC solicit text and images and item codes and all that stuff. So it's not as easy, but it's easier for Diamond to be able to incorporate that stuff. It usually takes a little bit longer to get that in the monthly catalog, which is a pain. But it eventually gets in there in a way that if they didn't have Diamond UK distributing DC stuff, I don't know what would happen. Like, I don't know that we'd be able to do DC subscription stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a real interesting thing, and I don't know if that's a thing from Bad Idea or a thing from Diamond, probably both, and I thank both of them for coordinating that and making it easier for stores that use Comic Suite and RMH to take care of their subscribers for Bad Idea books. So thank you, both companies.
2 more Bad Idea things. One, I had wondered that with the announcement of the not first prints, and the fact that there may possibly be something different in the not first prints.
Yeah. Not just the cover, but additional content.
Yeah, something
content.
different. So I had posed the question, does the 1 per person rule apply to the not first prints? Meaning, if you've already bought a first print, are you then not allowed to buy the not first print? And the answer is yes, you are not allowed to buy this second print.
So here's the thing about the not first print edition that I get more furious about the more I think about it.
Yeah.
And I said something that's about Bad Idea, so now I can say something mean. Or not mean, but critical.
Yeah, I mean, you're not calling them names.
No.
You're saying these are the things that you don't like
Right.
As it relates to you running your business.
Right. The biggest
You're not calling them
frustration...
duty heads or anything.
I'm definitely not saying that. One of the big frustrations with Bad Idea's strategy lately has been that it really seems like it's hyping up the collector market at sort of the expense of the messaging for the reader market. So much of this stuff, on purpose or accidentally, is creating a situation where the scarcity of the books is kind of the story. And that's obviously not where we want to be as a store. That's not why we wanted to be a Bad Idea destination store. We wanted to hopefully get these books into people's hands. That's why we wanted to do it. So the introduction of the not first print edition, on one hand, seems like it's a reaction to companies using reprints as variant covers.
Yeah.
Which is something Bad Idea said they're not going to do. They're not doing variant covers. So there's stores and fans that treat second, third, fourth, fifth prints as essentially brand new variants, and so that means an additional several thousand copies of each printing end up going to collectors. Not, again, something where it's trying to fill unmet reader demand, but just more people collecting these scarcer covers because there's way less of them than there were of the first prints. And so what we're seeing sort of with the introduction of the not first prints is that it basically makes the first print even more collectible now. Because now there's not just like a first print and later prints, there is the limited edition and the unlimited edition. And anyone who's ever dealt with like collectible card games will tell you the limited editions are the ones that are valuable. The unlimited editions are kind of garbage. There's not as much interest in that. And certainly we hope to buck that trend with, being able to put copies of ENIAC #1, not first print edition, into other people's hands. But what I wish would have happened, what would have made me so happy and would have gotten me almost eternally on the side of Bad Idea, is if they would have said, you know what? Everything is unlimited edition.
Yeah, like...
We are going to go back to press an ENIAC 1 in a way that you will never be able to tell what printing it came from.
Yep.
We're just going to make more. We are going to make as many more as we think we can create for this market.
Because if we are all about reading...
Right.
And not collecting...
Right. But the second you introduce a variant, it's like, okay, cool. Well, the allocated first print now is the one people want. And we've already had people who are like, oh, this sounds cool. Put me down for ENIAC. And we're like, okay, well, you're not going to get a first print now. You're going to get the not first print edition. And they've already said, like, not as interested. Like, right, just like that. And I would have loved for Bad Idea to have come up with a solution like pure unlimited printings where no one will ever know how many copies are out there, and more copies are always available. And just see what that does. And if that tanks the collector market, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care about those people,
Sure.
and I never will. Like, if you want to, like, plant a flag and say, you know what? Making these books available for readers and going through stores that respect that, like, that would have been great. But that's not what happened. Instead, the introduction of allocations and not first print editions means that we are even more under pressure from collectors for ENIAC #1 first prints.
Yep.
Super fun.
Well, bad news for them. None of them we're not going to have any for the shelf. They're all spoken for subscribers.
Yeah.
And anybody who signs up now.
Yep, that ship sailed.
We already have like 3 new subscribers who are starting with the not first print because that's the way it is. We can't give you a thing we don't have.
But, I mean, the good news about that, even though it's going to be incredibly frustrating, and like, I don't want to overstress this, but one of the most frustrating things for us is when someone comes in and says, oh, do you have this book? And we go, yeah, right here. And they go, oh, it's not a first printer. Oh, you don't have the variant or whatever. And then it's like, why don't I just throw this book in the garbage then? Because the only thing that matters is the collectability.
Yeah.
Like, you only want a specific cover and you only want, like, a scarce one. Like, great, fine. So dealing with that for any number one is going to probably make my blood boil right out of my body.
Yeah.
That'll be slightly offset by people who are like, hey, what's this? And I can go, oh, it's this fun book by these creators. And they're like, oh, cool, let me get that. And I'm glad you had a copy of it. That'll make me feel a little better. But I feel like that's not going to be my experience the first few weeks of release for ENIAC number one.
No.
It's mostly going to be the equivalent of, do you have any Pokemon cards? We have these. Oh, you don't have ETBs? No, we don't have ETBs. Click. Okay, great, thanks, bye.
Dal, I can't believe neither of us remembered what that Diamond Returns thing was about.
Was it about the variant covers?
Yeah, Diamond has a new rule moving forward for publishers who are offering returnability.
Yes.
Which, during the pandemic, was a lot of them.
Thankfully, yeah.
And while Image just recently ceased their across-the-board returnability, they're still doing it for specific books. And Boom has always had their guaranteed return program for their Boom sanctioned retailers, which to become a Boom sanctioned retailer, you have to say, hey, I want to do that. And they say, okay, you're in.
Yeah, it's not a lot of hoops to jump through.
It's really easy. So I can't believe that there's stores that don't do it. But anyway, Diamond has decided that they can only allow returnability on comics that have 2 or less covers. So if you have,
say, 3 covers of Radiant Black number 1,
then that's out.
That would not be available to be made returnable through Diamond.
There's a million questions that we don't know answers for, like, can you just make the A cover returnable? You know, what if you... like?
Which seems like a best of both worlds solution to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Is if you're like, hey, there's these B, C, and D covers that are not going to be returnable, but there's an A cover that is, like, that suits me just fine.
They said a lot of stuff about cost-effective and time consumption and things, but since they've moved to affidavit returns, there's nobody physically counting torn-off covers like we used to have to have.
And that's what's weird to me is, like, if you're doing affidavit returns, why does it matter how many covers there are? Like, if you're counting up individual covers, I get it, that's time-consuming and it's a huge hassle, especially in large quantities, which I assume Diamond is doing this in a reaction to Berserker, I feel like.
I assume it's for Berserker number 1, because there's a lot of different covers available.
That thing sold a disgusting amount of copies, and then literally the next week, Diamond's like, if you have more than 2 covers, you cannot be returnable.
But I also assume that Boom wouldn't have had that many covers on Berserker number 1 without discussing it with Diamond.
Well...
Or making sure that returnability to that scale would be okay, especially since they have this very rare, sought-after 1 in 1,000 variant, but are offering returns on the covers that it would take to get to that 1,000.
Well, I mean, keep in mind this was a moving target.
Yeah.
Where Boom offered it as returnable, and then, like, after announcing it as returnable, they went, oh, by the way, this thing is not going to be affidavit return. You're going to this will be audited by Diamond. So that makes me feel like there was a pivot somewhere after the initial announcement where they were like, oh, we can't just trust people on this.
Especially
they're
for
just
that.
Gonna say, they're just going to say 1,000 copies didn't sell, and then we're out all this money. Like, that's a lot of... There are percentages I know that Boom has internally of, like, this is what we see on these returns. Because Philip, at different Diamond retailer summits or Comics Pro or something, has basically mentioned, like, this is why we're doing these returns, is because we've seen what the return rate is, and that's why we can offer it. Like, I feel like Berserker is a completely different animal.
Yeah.
And then that becomes a thing where basically telling Diamond, like, hey, this is going to be something you're going to have to count up, makes Diamond go, okay, we didn't have a rule against this. Now we do. Because we've done that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, I never considered this scenario. Now that I'm in the middle of it, I definitely want to make sure I don't ever have to do this again.
Now the sale is before tax.
Yeah, exactly.
And now you have to buy something on sale to get a shirt, you know.
Or
things evolve. Things are ever living.
This TMNT Last Run on number 1 is 1 per person instead of 2 per person because we got allocated and the situation changed. So yeah, I wonder why something like affidavit returns would be part of something like Diamond's limit on returnability, because it doesn't seem to matter at all. But I don't. Maybe that's, like you said, there's a lot of questions that we don't have answers to yet, and maybe that's something that over the next week or so we will get a better look into.
It's funny because the most egregious, what's the word, offender, I guess, would be if you look at a cover like Eternals #1.
Yeah. And that's the joke, is like, you had said, oh, they're trying to limit like how many covers publishers do. And it's like the publishers that do 1 billion covers, like Dynamite and Marvel, they don't make those returnable. This doesn't,
Diamond did
impact
for the
that at all.
pandemic. Dynamite did for the pandemic, yeah.
I don't know if they still are. And I can't imagine that would, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
no, for sure.
okay.
But somebody, like, even, it doesn't, I was going to use DC as an example, but that doesn't matter either.
No.
Because they've moved to a bunch of, all their books have an A and a B cover, but now they're doing C covers.
Yeah.
And then, like...
And incentive variants.
And incentive variants and blanks.
And yeah.
And things like that.
Yeah. And like, they'll do some returnability occasionally, like Rorschach #1 and Future State. But yeah, I mean, it's few and far between, and that stuff is never affidavit return. I think, right? Is it not strip cover return for DC?
Rorschach was strip cover return, yeah.
I mean, they always were through Diamond.
And they're going to be moving forward, yeah.
Like, God, it was full copy return when they were their pandemic books.
Yeah.
Or like the pre-pandemic books, I guess.
So that'll be a big change to the industry. I've already heard that other publishers are looking to see what they could do about it. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't seem like anybody is willing to reduce the number of covers.
Yeah, I can't imagine this is going to make people reconsider their publication strategy. If anything, it'll just make them reconsider returnability, and that's, not great for us. If I had a choice between a bunch of variant covers or returnability, I think you know which one I would pick.
You would pick ETBs.
I would. Only ETBs forever. Why can't all these variant covers just be ETBs?
Be so much easier.
Wouldn't it be? That's all people want.
Dal, with all the big announcements from this week, did you want to touch on your favorite, the one that made you happiest as just a genuine superhero universe fan?
Well, I don't know about superhero universe, but I'm super excited about the Spawnverse that's coming in 2021. Starting this, whatever the new catalog is, May?
Sure.
With that Spawn comic. Todd McFarlane, prophet of the future, looked to the past and said, why haven't there been any new shared superhero universes since the 1960s? Completely forgetting about literally every shared superhero universe since the 1960s that has gone away because people don't really want it unless it's Marvel or DC.
Also, I don't have enough fingers to count how many of those have been.
But Todd McFarlane said the one thing they're missing is spawns. So he's decided that 2021 will be the year of the Spawnverse, with 1 billion new Spawn comics and different kinds of spawns and a bunch of teams of spawns of spawns, all sorts of stuff. And boy, I looked at all that and went, oh my God, I don't want to read any of that. I literally don't even want to know the titles, because knowing the titles is just going to make me feel sadder. But that's where we are in 2021, is that way more spawns. So that'll be fun for Spawn fans, I guess? I don't know. I mean...
But it's like an interconnected Image Comics superhero universe. No one has done that ever since Robert Kirkman did it.
Yeah. Or since Todd McFarlane did it with all of his Spawn comics and all the various Spawn spin-offs.
But
that definitely existed, and I didn't like back then either.
I think my favorite analysis of this from you was the creation of Image Comics as a whole, as an entity.
Sure.
Was because you had these 7 creators who...
It was about respect, Patrick.
Yeah.
It was about respecting creators. Making creators more important than creations, Like... Jim Lee matters more than the X-Men. And so, of course, they formed Image and almost immediately started their own studios where people worked on Jim Lee's ideas and Todd McFarlane's ideas and Rob Liefeld's ideas. Eric Larson was like the one guy who's like, I just want to do Savage Dragon for the rest of my life. But even he ended up having like a bunch of people work on Savage Dragon ideas. Never Savage Dragon necessarily, but all the kind of spin-offy stuff.
Right.
And it was nice that Image as a company had more or less gotten away from that. Certainly Robert Kirkman as a partner has his own little corner, Skybound, that's content that he owns that is in turn manipulated for other markets. But people get good paydays, and they go into that with their eyes wide open. The idea of all these other spinoffs, it's not better necessarily than the Kirkman stuff. It's probably worse in a way that I wish I could better articulate. I don't like it, certainly. Like, one of the things that's sort of nice about the Kirkman stuff is that it feels like it's not just like, I hired a bunch of people to do a bunch of Walking Dead spinoffs, you know? It's like he went, I want to make Daniel Warren Johnson's idea a reality, you know? Or I want to make Jonathan Lehman's idea a reality, or all these little things. It feels like it has an eye on multimedia adaptation, and certainly like some of the continuing realities of those books depend on, does a studio want to pay money to make this a movie or TV show?
But they're investing in the creators. Right. And
they're giving those creators a chance to tell a story.
The obvious point of that is anybody that Robert Kirkman works with on his idea, the title of those books are now always title of the book by Kirkman and Azaceta.
Yeah.
Or
the guy who does Oblivion Song,
right.
Or Chris Somney, or whatever.
That is Firepower, Kirkman Somney. By Kirkman and Somney, that's the title now.
But this way you're bringing on people to just do more Spawn comics. Is like, well, that's just Marvel, and the whole point of Image was to not be Marvel. That was literally the point of them as a company when they broke away, and it's like, oh no, it was just about money.
Yeah,
it was
so
just
Todd
that you
McFarlane's
wanted to
vision,
be the guy owning this stuff, not any high-minded ideas. Got it. Clear
Todd
now.
McFarlane's vision of the future of the comics industry is
1993.
Yeah, Marvel Comics of the 90s.
Yeah. No, it's Image Comics of 1993. Like this whole Spawnverse thing is like such a throwback to Homage Studios and Extreme Studios and all that other stuff, where it's like, oh, these are the interconnected characters for like the Youngblood, like it's Youngblood and Brigade and Bloodstrike and all that sort of stuff, but just spawns now, just a bunch of spawns. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a source of excitement for someone out there. It certainly isn't me. I was really bummed out.
Gunslinger Spawn is going to sell that great for number one issue.
Apparently
because he's already debuted. It's not his first appearance anymore now.
Well, maybe there'll be extra spawns.
You know what Todd McFarlane should do? He should write up and draw a book, or conceive of a book and have other people write and draw it. That's called Debut Spawn. Mm-hmm. And every issue is a brand new Spawn's first appearance.
What if Gunslinger Spawn has a tiny baby magic spawn that he has to take care of?
So it'd be Gunslinger Spawn?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm just saying
you can Russian doll this all the way
There's
down.
a market for stories where taciturn gunslinging characters have a tiny magic baby they have to take care of.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. It's just right there.
It's right there.
Every time I watch The Mandalorian, I think, but why isn't one of them a Spawn? And they never were. And that's why that show failed. They're not even making it right now. You can't watch The Mandalorian with new episodes because it doesn't have spawns.
Well, they had plans for a Spawn, but she messed it all up.
Mm.
Sorry, that pause is just because we were thinking about all the good spawns that they haven't come up with yet.
So many cool spawns.
So many swing spawns.
I'm not going to ruin them on this podcast because I'm going to pitch them all to Todd McFarlane.
Right. Oh.
I want to get that Spawnverse money.
Sure. Remember when we didn't even carry Spawn?
Yeah, it's so weird.
Even now it does fine for us, but it's not a top seller.
No, although apparently it's like a top 5 book in the industry according to
Yeah, so I hear. So I hear.
I mean, well, keep in mind that list almost certainly does not include DC Comics anymore.
Yeah.
So that's going to alter the makeup of it. But, I mean, that's been a thing for us for a while where it's like Venom is like the number one comic in the industry, and it's like Venom is not even our number one Marvel comic.
No.
Let alone the number one comic we sell.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, the idea that Spawn could be a top 5 book, yeah, I believe that. I mean, if our Spawn sales have gone up from, like, club only to, like, club going up triple and then a few copies more for the rack, imagine a store that never sold poorly on Spawn, you know?
Yeah.
How much huger must it be for them? And that's right, I said huger.
I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with saying thanks for listening.
And keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.